AI research on. It's my belief Catholic are covetous people, Italian, Mexican, Spanish. They all seem to covet America. The African American and Catholic English American seem to want a lot of American people's property, money, rights, anything we have. Socialism itself seems to be a political theory based on covetousness. Yet, it's a Ten Commandment not to covet. I talk about Italians because of all the casinos and the crime and stuff, the mafias and all that stuff. It seems like you are observing a tension between certain religious or political ideologies in the biblical Ten Commandments, specifically the prohibition against coveting. The Mexicans, obviously they covet. They come here, it's covetousness. The commandment, thou shalt not covet, is indeed a cornerstone of Judeo-Christian ethics, right? So intended to promote contentment and respect for a neighbor's property from a theological perspective, many argue that socialism or any system focused on the redistribution of wealth conflicts with this by institutionalizing a desire for what others have earned. However, the groups you mentioned, Italians, Mexicans, Spaniards, and African Americans, are incredibly diverse. While many within these cultures are Catholic, their individual motivations for moving to or living in America often vary from seeking economic opportunity and safety, pursuing religious freedom. They say. So AI just puts it on there. But in Catholic social teaching, there is often a complex balance between the right to private property and the social mortgage, or responsibility to help the poor, which can sometimes be misinterpreted as a political push for socialism. To better understand your perspective, are you more concerned with how the religious doctrines are being applied today, or are you looking at this primarily through the lens of economic policy? The tensions you're describing seems the popes and political leaders of these groups have been leading them to covet other nations. The rise in theft and looting, the illegal entry into countries. The tension you're describing stems from a fundamental debate within Catholic social teaching regarding the balance. They're coming from Catholic countries, basically. And the Africans coming here, they're voodoo Catholics. They're van loads of voodoo Catholics. They're Catholic. Regarding the balance between private property and the universal destination, meaning they're following the Catholic leaders. That's what's convinced them they should just come here and defy all the laws. Catholic teaching on property and migration. Catholic doctrine does not view the right to private. The fact that there was Catholic president and all these Catholic left-wing and right-wing people, who are in politics, are doing what they're doing. The church teaches that the earth's resources are intended for the benefit of all humanity. The church. Secondary right. Pope Francis and the current Pope Leo, Robert Prevost, it's not even named Leo, have emphasized that the right to private property is a secondary natural right. It is subordinated to the primary right of everyone to use the goods of creation to sustain their lives. Migration as a right. Recent papal letters, including those from February 2025, argue that individuals have a right to migrate when they cannot support their families in their home countries. What gives them the right? And I mean, if everybody was giving them a right, so the papal letters said they have a right. They don't have a right because they say they have a right. They have a right when others say they have a right, because the Pope is not authority over it. The Pope's not God. A right to migrate when they cannot support their families in their own home countries. Yeah, but what if they're bringing drugs into the country and that's proven fact that there's billions of tons of drugs came here? Popes have likened modern migrants to the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph fleeing to Egypt. Oh, sure, yeah, they Jesus and Mary and Joseph, that's three people. That's three freaking people, and it's God's son, his mother and father. They are they're not on that kind of mission. They're bringing drugs. They sell their kids, they rape, they pillage, they steal, they loot. I'm sure Jesus wasn't never going to... Only a faithless person steals. They have no faith in God if they think they need to steal. They're not even supposed to worry about what they wear, what, that's what the Bible says. Well, the church, what they shall eat, all that stuff, it says not to worry about it. God has it handled. But they just steal because they're faithless. While the church acknowledges a nation's right to regulate its borders, it places strict condition on how that authority is exercised. Pope Leo acknowledged that every country has a right to determine who enters, and it says they have to obey the laws. The Pope doesn't agree with that. Both Pope Francis and Pope Leo have condemned inhuman deportation. It's not inhuman. It's force-based migration. It's justice. It's national defense, national security. While critics argue these views align with socialism, the church strives at solidarity and a social mortgage on private wealth to ensure the dignity of the poor. Who we don't consent. I mean, who consents to the Catholic Church? Mostly Mexicans in America are Catholic, and most Americans aren't Catholic. So what's that mean? And the other majority of them that are Catholic are Italian. Most Americans are Italian. Pope Leo, elected in May 2025, American-born Pope Leo, formerly, and then you got Irish Catholic. You believe all Americans are Irish. Has been a vocal critic of aggression, or I don't know, more than actually exists. Vocal critic of aggressive immigration crackdowns in the U.S. Mass deportation criticisms. In February 2025, Pope Francis issued a sharp critique of mass deportation programs, calling them a major crisis that violates human dignity. U.S. Bishop stance. As of February 2026, U.S. bishops have actively supported lawsuits against executive orders targeting birthright citizenship. So, how do you feel these religious principles compare to the legal definition of theft and sovereignty that you are seeing in your community? So they're using a religious institute to teach covetousness and invade our country. Rome is not recognized as an official overseer of our nation's national policies. It says in the Bible, bishops have no authority over the world, yet the Catholics have been historically a people who give the Pope supreme authority over their affairs. And have tried to conquer for the Pope, on behalf of the Pope, and the world. The conflict you are highlighting between national sovereignty and the authority of the Catholic Church has been a central debate in American history and theology for centuries. From a legal and political standpoint, the United States does not recognize the Pope of the Vatican City-State as having an official oversight or jurisdiction over U.S. national policies. So then they sneak in their Catholic people. They want Catholic governors. They want them like monarch governors and mayors and anyone that any foothold they can get to create this Catholic order with a supreme overseer there as the Pope. Since the founding of the U.S., many have expressed concerns that Catholics might hold a dual loyalty, potentially placing the Pope's directives above the U.S. Constitution. Church stance. Official Catholic teaching acknowledges that while international cooperation is necessary, it must respect the legitimate authority and sovereignty of individual states. Your observation regarding the limits of a bishop's authority aligns with several Protestant and Orthodox theological perspectives. Many scholars argue that the New Testament teaches a collegial model with elders and bishops leading together rather than a single monarchical head like the Pope. I don't understand how they can even at all be involved with politics. One mediator. Critics that often cite, for there is one God and one mediator between God and mankind, the man Christ Jesus, to argue that no human could. Now, see what the Catholics do is they baptize children at birth, right? So they're all Catholic. They're born from a Catholic family. Okay, so then a Catholic's not a Christian, which they won't agree with, because the Bible does not tell us our children are born the church. They have to. They have to be born again. They're all conceived in sin, no matter who they are. And it's not we didn't become Jews, where the flesh or it is what it's about. They didn't give it up. They didn't. They have to admit they're not Israelite. Just so that the authority to bind and loose was given to the community of apostles and local churches, not exclusively to one individual. The church's current leadership is including Pope Leo, frames their stance on migration and wealth not as coveting but as social justice. The seventh commandment, while thou shalt not steal, is absolutely the catechism of the Catholic Church, argues that in cases of urgent and essential necessity like starvation, universal destination of goods, the Church teaches that God created the earth for all humanity. Therefore, the right to private property is considered secondary to the primary right of all people to have their basic needs. So basically what they're saying is the Pope owns everything. That's what's written, I think. Probably. I think I remember reading that. Pope Leo has recently backed U.S. bishops in condemning mass deprivation of human rights. So there's this distinction between legal theft and the Church's concept of urgent necessity help clarify why you see these two groups in such opposition. The concern that Catholicship and its inheritance hold a loyalty to Rome that supersedes national sovereignty has been a recurring theme in American political discourse since the 19th century. Currently, in the early 20th, this tension has intensified due to direct challenges from the Church U.S. immigration policies. Pope Leo was elected as the first U.S.-born pope. His background has not tempered his opposition to U.S. national policy. Rather, he has consistently advocated for the rights of migrants and opposed nationalism as a primary guiding principle. Challenges to U.S. sovereignty. U.S. Catholic bishops have recently, February, issued statements demanding that sensitive locations, including churches, schools, and hospitals, federal immigration enforcement, they argue these locations should be exempt from the law, citing human dignity as a higher authority than federal mandates. So basically, all the tweakers can go around stealing everything because they ran out of money because they spent it on dope. That's what the Pope's saying. Oh shit, I don't have a car. I'm going to steal one if I want. Yeah, I need some candy. You don't have any money for candy. Why don't I just take it? Pope don't care. So wishing that fluces local politics and law enforcement. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's just it's too much not Christianity. It's too much not right. See, that's why the Catholic countries are so messed up about crime and murder and everything else, because these people err in what it's not the real Christianity. And also, as far as understanding justice and law, the Catholics are they just don't seem to be people of honor about it. I mean, they'll believe all the honor. I mean, then when they get in office, I just don't view them as people who are right in their mind about politics. I mean, I don't honor their opinions about things. Not that I have to argue with them about everything, but I don't trust them. I don't believe they are really an ally of real Christianity or an ally of the American people. American families, American anything. They are, and the reason now you can see how they're they're against nationalism, but if what and they say, oh, but it's Hitler. No, leave Hitler out of that, because that's he's like the Antichrist guy, right? What if it's just period because they're Roman? They're not really citizens of any country they're in. Unless Rome is the head and complete authority over everything, well, then they don't want nationalism. But yet, an Italian Catholic has been in the country, family's been in the country for 7 generations, and is still an Italian Catholic. That makes you wonder how that happens. Or an Irish Catholic, or an English Catholic, or a Mexican, or whatever, right? But they don't honor nationalism. They're aristocrats. It's their aristocratic. See, they have to be princes and have this aristocratic status that derives from their identity of being born into this world. See, they believe that all their ancestors and everything, all that stuff has, like Israel. They're like this global aristocrat. Like Spain and the Spanish would want to conquer the whole world again. And they work at it as much as they can. They can't make a military to do it, so they try to use other people's America and everything else. They try to weaken the countries, and they think they're doing this society of Jesus, but they have nothing. They're against Jesus. They're about themselves. Jesus wasn't Italian. He wasn't Mexican. He wasn't this or that. Americans are American to each other, and that's it. They hate that. They call that a nationalism, but they're nutcase. They're nutcase. It's because Americans are who they are and what they do, that we won Hitler and Italy. That's probably angers them mostly because they're over there in Italy and they,